As usual, we'll start off with a review and get into our next letter. And today we'll look at the Tav. This is what the Tav looks like. Remember, Hebrew has 22 letters, and they're written from right to left, or backwards from English. They're found in the Tanakh, the Hebrew equivalent to the Old Testament. Remember, the Tanakh and the Old Testament are almost identical, except for the order of the books and the name of each book. The Tanakh uses the first word or couple of words, while the Old Testament uses a description of what the book is about. Genesis is the name of the first book of the Old Testament, while the Tanakh refers to this book as Bereshit, which is Hebrew for in the beginning. The first Hebrew letter we studied was the Shin, which makes the sh sound, as in shepherd. And that's when you have a dot on the right side at the top. The second letter we studied was the Bet, which makes the B sound, as in boy. And then that's when you have a dot inside, or dagesh, inside the letter. Often Hebrew has nichud, which are little dots and lines which help Hebrew students pronounce the vowels in the Hebrew words. And we studied the petach, which is a horizontal line under a letter that adds the ah sound. And the kamatz looks like a little T that's found under a Hebrew letter, and it also adds the ah sound, like Shah of Iran. A good example is the Hebrew word for father, or actually it's daddy. The first letter, which we have not studied yet, is the Aleph, but remember I told you it has no sound by itself. But when you add the petach, the word begins with ah. The second letter you have studied, and it's a bet, which makes the b sound, as in boy. When you add the kamatz underneath it, you get the ah sound, like father. And remember, when the aleph stands alone and it's at the end of this word, without a vowel, there's no sound. So you end up with Abba, which is father in Hebrew. The new letter we'll cover today is the Tav, which makes the T sound, like the T in taco. Remember, the Tav appears with or without the dagesh. But with the Tav, the dagesh doesn't change the sound of the letter. So it's always the T as in taco, with or without the dagesh. Now here's some practice. How would you say this Hebrew word? It's Shabbat, which is the Hebrew word for Sabbath. Now take some practice. Now take some time, practice writing the Tav.